Please welcome Heidi Lee.
Thanks, guys. So I'm a hat designer, and I've been fortunate enough to have a lot of success and recognition over the years. Here are a few of my hats, as you can see, and they were showcased at Silicon Valley Fashion Week yesterday, and I wanted to actually bring them to you so that you could see them in person on real people. And thankfully, these lovely women have been able to volunteer for me today. As you can see, they're pretty eye-catching, and but behind that, there's a lot of thought and process that goes behind each of my stories, and each of them have a narrative and story within their own right, and I'd like to share them with you. The first hat here is the cocktail Paracel Hat, and it's 3D printed laser sintered nylon, and it's flexible, as you can see. And it was based on Caracasa Obaki, which is a legend that dates back like hundreds of years ago in Japanese folklore, where paracels gain souls after 100 years. So I decided to electrocute the Caracasa Obaki, and what remains is the boning, or the architecture of decay. And that's the origin story behind this hat. And this hat garnered a letter of recognition from Harold Koda, the curator in charge of the Met Museum and the Costume Institute, which is now called the Anna Wintour Costume Center. And that happened in 2012. And I could say that was about the same time when I really started to get like more serious about endeavoring in making more innovative and creative pieces as a hat designer. Okay, thank you. You can stay here. This is the Vortex hat, and this is also laser sintered nylon, and it's inspired by net art and the internet. And as you can see, it's the grid, so you're literally on the grid versus off the grid. And what's cool about it is that because it's like a basic minimal pattern, it goes with everything. And having a background in graphic design at Rhode Island School of Design, I'm pretty used to normally like seeing things on a grid and mapping things and aligning things. So I guess my graphic design history also, you can see that relating in this hat right here. And I would say this is one of my more popular pieces right now. And what's great about nylon is that you can color match it to any Pantone color. So I also have glow-in-the-dark versions as well. No black light needed. And this is a special hat collaboration with Adam Harvey, who's a surveillance artist. He had a full-page New York Times article about the work that he's been doing, and he's very innovative in trying to bridge the gap between technology and art and where it's going. He's done conferences with Snowden, and he's trying to make aware more and more the fact that we're constantly being surveillanced and how Big Brother is watching you. As you can see, this hat, like, that's where your eyes align, and the nose bridge, like you can see all the sacred geometry happening right now. And it has a Buckminster Fuller, like, geodesic dome kind of structure in the back. And it's made so that it can be worn, and it blocks face detection in computers. So this is a prototype, and it first debuted at the New Museum Demo Day in January, this past January. And we're going through second and third rounds soon. And it's been presented in the FBI, and there's a lot of interest in it because people want to avoid being seen by everyone and being recognized. So there you go. This is the ampersand hat, and oh, sorry. It's a combination between an @ symbol and an ampersand, and it was commissioned by the New Republic magazine. It's a political magazine, and it was recently just bought by a Facebook founder. But anyways, they commissioned me to create any piece that had any ampersand in it for their books and the arts page. So I decided to show how like where things are going, like things are becoming more and more digital, and just 3D printing too. The marvelous aspects behind it is the fact that you can create something out of nothing, and things that you could normally not print or create any other way are possible through 3D printing. I decided to make a combination of ampersand and an @ symbol and create a whole new symbol or emoji, you could say. And I'm gonna also make an @ symbol hat too to go with this one. Yeah. Cool. And this is the Echo hat. And I've gotten a lot of press from this because it's just a showstopper and people are really curious about it. Especially at the Silicon Valley Fashion Week, this had the most attention and people were like cheering really hard. So can you demonstrate for us? So she's gonna do a 360. And as you can see, there's 8 faces that go around. And this is also kind of commentary on how we live in a surveillance age as well, and how we live in the age of the selfie, and how people are really consumed with the idea of like Facebook, and Facebook is literally a book of faces, so it all ties in that way. And it's a critique on how we live in a society of that, as well as it references Greek and Roman mythology, the story of Echo and Narcissus, of how Echo, this woodland nymph, yearns for Narcissus, but Narcissus instead like falls in love with his own reflection. So I love that mythological story, and it always like, you know, I felt really in tune with it as a kid. So I wanted to create a piece that was referencing that like mythological, ancient story with something modern too, with this new technique in 3D printing of laser-sintered nylon, which is high resolution, and you can get really fine details that you couldn't get otherwise. So thank you. And this is the Atomic Universe hat, and I was really fascinated with the idea of the Big Bang and physics, because I never studied that as a kid, and I wanted to make a visual representation of how electrons would like flow and spin around a nucleus. So this is an actual representation of LEDs representing electrons, you could say. And as you can see, it's very trippy. And depending on how you permutate like your head, like how you throb your head around, it also does different orbital movements. So yeah, see? Yeah, if we turn down the lights, maybe you guys could see better, but yeah, this is a really fun showstopper too. So yeah, those are just some of these hats. And this is the letter of recognition that I got from Harold Coda, which I was really lucky enough to be part of. It was a nationwide contest that was open to all design students in America. And it was in conjunction with the Elsa Schiaparelli and Prada exhibition on how Schiaparelli and Prada really felt deeply connected to each other because of their love of art and fashion and surrealism. So as you can see, a lot of my hats have homages to surrealism happening. And this cocktail parasol hat, like, I guess you could say I Duchamped it, like, instead of, like, just how, like, Marcel Duchamp took a bicycle wheel and put it in a different context and put it on a stool, he created a monumental piece of artwork. Like, I feel like putting an umbrella on a headband, it's kind of similar in the same aspects. So I wanted to also show you some of my other hats that weren't able to be here today. So you can kind of do, like, you could see a scope of some of my other stuff. This is the Echo hat again, and I also have a mirrored version that was chromed by the same chromers as Jeff Koons, and it has a very Hall of Mirrors aspect to it, and it really plays with the double entendre of who's watching who, really, literally. And you get to see yourself in the mirror as well as see other people around you at the same time. This was a piece that I did for Victor Osborne. He's also a milliner that has done commission pieces for Tom Brown and Rodarte and a few other top designers. That's how I kind of started off apprenticing under him. And he gave me an opportunity to make an origami hat out of paper, but a miniature version that was sent out to accessory editors at Vogue, GQ, W, Harper's Bazaar, all the top editors, and they were able to get this mini hat box invite, and in exchange they had a free hat. So that was the interesting box of curiosities, you could say, that they received. What's cool about this is the origins of origami, like treble wits, which is a type of magic that's made with paper. You can transform these shapes into many different shapes. Like, for example, this can be worn 3 different ways. So I was playing with the idea of how Houdini even used to use treble wits, and I wanted to make that into a hat and make it into an interesting curiosity keepsake. That's me with the 10 hat, the few editions that I had created. This is the fencing bonnet hat, and it was it's made out of this material called cineme, and you can mold it with your hands, and by the heat of your hands and spraying it with water, you can transform the material into different shapes. And I also worked with my uncle, who's also a hat designer, and he's been in the industry for over 30 years. So I was able to grasp a lot from working with him as well. And these hats are currently being pulled by Vogue Italia, shot by Stephen Meisel for a shoot that's coming up next month. Again, that's the ampersand hat in black and white. This is the Redrum Hat, and it's plastic that was melted with a heat gun in the organic shape that you see right there. This is the Dali hat. It's inspired by Salvador Dali and his persistence of memory. And I made a special commission version for Lady Gaga, where it's a holographic time hat on the right-hand side. So I use this holographic film to use as a base layer, and then vinyl lettered the Roman numerals afterwards. This is this interesting material called horsehair, and what's cool about it is that once you sew it in half, you can pull at it, and it starts curving, and it becomes a swirl. So this is called a swirl hat on the left, and then this is a cone bras hat, which was inspired by Jean-Paul Gaultier's corset that Madonna wore for Truth or Dare. And it was, the cone bras hat was commissioned by the Brooklyn Museum for me to lead a 50 people class that was sold out. So that was a really great opportunity that happened in 2014. It was also in conjunction with the International Exhibition retrospective of Jean-Paul Gaultier. These are some other colors, waves. And in conjunction with this small cocktail parasol hat, I also had this big parasol skeleton hat, so it's a jumbo version. And those two garnered the award from the Met Museum. Also different color waves, red, white, and blue, trying to be patriotic. Black version, and then different colorways for the cocktail parasol hat. The one on the right is the Vortex Hat, different color waves. The one on the right here is called a Wrinkle in Time, and it's leather that is embedded with these like sparkles. So I thought it very much I was envisioning like space and how space folds. And what's interesting about this hat is that the whole piece is folded to make the circular dome-like aspect of the piece. So it's almost like a planetarium of a hat or a holodeck. Like if you look on the inside, the grosgrain that surrounds the ribbon has planetary, like Milky Way constellations enwrapping your head. This is called the Ariel Hat, and as you can see, it has a blue-green iridescence on the left and like a pinkish, like sea foam, like fuchsia going on. It's a combination of a baseball cap with a cowboy top. So I was kind of hacking that idea. This is the Ariel Fin Hat. This is also the same blue-green iridescence too, but it is, it's the same leather that Comme des Garçons made their wallets with. It's like the same iridescence. The one on the right is the Third Eye Hat, and they're made of real photopolymer holograms, about 130. And the base of the hat too is also rainbow holograms. So it's all holographic. This is the Singularity Hat. And as you can see, it's like a motherboard pattern, and it's a little like old school style, but I like the idea of mixing old and new. And at the time I was reading Ray Kurzweil's The Singularity book, and I was really faced with the concerns of what singularity might look like. So the idea of biological and technological coming together, and like the idea of a lenticular having two sides of a double-edged sword, like being the same thing. I thought that was really fitting to make these hats. Yeah. As you can see, that's the Atomic Universe hat on the left, and then the Body Electric hat. And it's inspired by Walt Whitman's I Sing the Body Electric poem. If you have a chance, I highly recommend you guys reading it. It's a wonderful poem, and it's made with addressable LEDs that all kind of speak the same language of this rainbow melting colors that are happening. And it was featured in a SHOWstudio punk film last year, and it featured Suju, a supermodel, who is now the face of L'Oreal. This is the glass hat, and it's inspired by like coral reef, and it's a piece of antique glass that I reappropriated and created into a hat piece. It's a cocktail parasol hat in red, but it's amazing to see like my stuff actually used in editorials and stuff. It was like that's the very like fulfilling part about doing this, seeing it in a whole different context from different eyes and different artistic directors. So this is a few of my press that I've gotten. End of century, there was a show called Gallery Girls that featured my hats on television for Bravo. This is the Redrum Hat, and Redrum is murder spelled backwards. So I like the idea of how it looked like blood that was like coagulating and becoming this mass of cells. So yeah. The Paracel skeleton hat, like the year that I created it, garnered a lot of attention. It was in the New York Times. And the next day after this, on the left, it was featured in Bill Cunningham's Sunday Style page. And as you can see, the girl on the right, she's wearing a mini origami hat. Hey. The hat on the left is called the Carnal Flora Hat, and it's made of plastic flowers that were all like pieced together, kind of like ikebana. I forget the exact word of how you arrange flowers in Japanese flower arrangements. I think it's called ikebana. But anyways, yeah, that was the inspiration to make something really like out of this world and like bizarre, almost taxidermied, but in a plant-like way. And the picture on the right, I was featured in W magazine, and I'm wearing the melting clock hat. These are special hats that I created that have LEDs where the eyes are. And then this is a very like Michelle Harper. She's like a fashion muse. I had the great privilege of her wearing my hat for an editorial. So yeah, these are some other hats. Do you guys have any questions? Or want to? Oh, sorry.
All right, question here.
So I've been following you for a long time. I'm a big fan.
Really?
Yes. And I was always wondering if you were ever going to do any clothing or if you're just going to stick with hats.
I want to be known for hats first, and then slowly enter other realms too. And fashion, you know, clothing is a natural progression. So definitely keep your eyes peeled for me.
Okay.
For me.
Cool.
Yeah.
So thanks for coming. Stuff's beautiful.
Thanks for being here.
So I guess my question, I have a two-part question. So like, why did you start with hats, and like, why was that your beginning fashion piece, and why is that your staple of your work?
Okay, I could say hats in a lot of ways. You could see them, as a child at least, it was a bit of comfort, like a pillow or a security blanket. It gives you a sense of belonging to something. And no matter what context you're in, you can still have your own thinking space and your own, bring to the table like a piece of yourself. So that's what I like about it. So no matter what matrix you're in, you're still in your own headspace. So that's what I like about hats. And you know, wearing a hat, your mind is connected to it as well. So it's interconnected.
Cool. And the second part of the question was, it looks like fashion's going pretty digital these days, right? So
Yeah.
Do you see that becoming a bigger trend? And then what's the future of like digital LEDs and lighting and movement within fashion?
Yeah, I believe in the idea of the new aesthetic, that coined term, where the digital is becoming more and more physical. So as you can see, 3D printing, it starts with a vector file and like a file that becomes something real. So yeah, your imagination is the limits, you know? Anything can happen really when you put your imagination into reality, and 3D printing is the medium.
It seems 3D printing and body scanning are these fantastic tools for creating really personalized pieces, which is something, I guess, in like the modern commoditized world that, you know, things are made for millions of people to be as cheap as possible. But what do you think it would take before, you know, the 3D printing and body scanning can actually be used at like a large scale?
I think that there's a lot of patents that are expiring hopefully soon, so it'll become more and more affordable for normal people to wear and have access to. As you can see, there's already like places like Kinko's and stuff that have 3D printers, and I can see over there, right there, like a MakerBot, and that's a little bit more low resolution, like plastic extrusion, but there's going to be more and more options coming out in the market as, you know, competition makes things more affordable.
I was wondering if you could talk a bit more about the process. Like you started talking a bit about the different resolutions of 3D printing or whatever. But like, say if someone wanted to try out like nylon printing or something, like or how you might go about it?
Well, this is nylon printing. So it starts off in a bed of powder, and your file, once you put it in, layer by layer, the lasers go through and sinter the nylon, which is melting it. So afterwards, like after they print it all, they dust off all the powder, and what like remains is like kind of like an archaeological dig. You find this piece, and it's ready to go.
Do you feel like the process is any different for fashion, sort of these kinds of statements that you're doing versus like other stuff that people are making?
Well, I think like the way to go if you're doing high fashion is flexible nylon 3D printed stuff, because it's the most wearable out there, I would say. And yeah, also like it's extremely high resolution. The low resolution stuff, you can see the lines, and you can see like little strings coming out and stuff. So it's just, you can see the quality. It's obvious, because the printer costs like $500,000, the ones that you see here today. So.
I'm curious about how you got started and what type of work you did before you went to RISD, and how many of these pieces were made while you were a student there.
Initially, like when I moved to New York, I was working for a multi-millionaire luxury real estate marketing company called SHOW, and we would kind of dream up crazy ideas of like creating artificial islands in Dubai, and imagining like what the resort would look like and how the spas would be underwater and such like that. So it was pretty intense and interesting, like working with like buildings that Philippe Starck designed, and Jade Jagger, to name a few, in W hotels. But at the end of the day, I felt like I wanted to do something more fulfilling and more personal, and like wanted to share my stories through these hats, as you can see. And initially, I didn't really know I was going to get into hat design. I just kind of stumbled upon it. And it started off apprenticing under Victor Osborne, the milliner. And then I started just creating my hats little by little over that time period, starting with the origami hats, and then creating more functional pieces. And I feel like my stuff tries to bridge the gap between art and fashion and design all at the same time. So each of my hats, you could say, are statement pieces, because each of them have strong concepts behind them. Yeah.
On average, like, how long does it tend to take you with like your entire like creative process, from like the ideas, sketching it out, I don't know what other steps are in there, and then actually like, okay, hat's 3D printed?
I could say coming from RISD, they train you to have a really sharp eye, and also it doesn't help that I'm a bit of a perfectionist. So it takes me lots and lots of rounds and revisions to get to the level that you see here today. So it's like, you know, trial and error, and if it doesn't fit, you try again and again and again, and then you hone it, and it becomes a actual sellable product. So that's what my aim is, as you can see. Yeah.
Is that like months or?
Every hat has its own process. Some hats, like just like making a hit song, you know, you never know. It could take a couple days, or it could take like a month, or like, you know, it has its own like wavelength of process, you could say.
Hi, I was wondering, what sort of constraints do you give yourself when you're thinking about a new design?
Definitely something that is palpable for like people, but then still striking. Like, I want to make something that is something that a consumer would want in general, and maybe like satiate the masses in that sense, but then also have the integral integrity of ergonomics, like design and function.
As you can see in this space, the garage here, it's kind of like a scrappy place that we use to prototype and brainstorm. I was wondering how you deal with a space like this, or what's in your creative process do you have a specific space where you ideate this stuff?
I feel, to be honest, at ease in this kind of space, like a working space, because making some of my hats, for example, the Echo hat, it took a lot of priming and sanding and priming, like days and days of doing that, and it would be in a workspace like this, where I would actually do it myself. Right now, I don't have at my leisure many interns, so I do most of the work myself. So as you can see, like getting it to that point, it was a lot of my own hand labor. So being in a real raw, like hands-on space like this, that's where I feel at ease and comfortable. Yeah.
Back to you.
Cool. Thanks for coming. Sweet.